Greetings to all, to those who are now joining. I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay on this, the Dr. Matthews Bay Unfiltered, here on Facebook and YouTube. Greetings to you, my Aboriginal brothers and sisters within the corporations of Guyana, Suriname, Brazil, and Venezuela. Also, the corporations of the Caribbean nations and around the world. Greetings to you, to those who are Moors, like myself. And I hope that you share this live feed this evening as I'm about to bring you the substance as it is. Now, today, this evening, as a matter of fact, I want to discuss the Constitution. I was looking at a video, and there was this young lady who was describing her knowledge about the Constitution. She said she's about 24 years of age, and all her life going to school, whether it be primary, tertiary, or whether it be primary, secondary, or I don't think university, but she was trying to say that she was never thought about the Constitution, especially the Constitution of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. So I want to divulge on it because apparently she was trying to say to most of us who would normally be on that particular algorithm that there's nothing much that a lot of people knows about the Constitution, especially the Corporate Republic of the Corporation of Guyana. So I want to start there this evening because a lot of persons who would be looking at certain shows are being misinformed about the Constitution and what the role of especially the president is, and what roles does he play. So let me start there. So I want to say unequivocally that the president of the Corporation of Guyana is the executive. That means he is the Constitution. And why do I say so? I know some people wouldn't want me to divulge on this topic, especially some politicians. But let us be frank. The Constitution of the Corporate Republic of Guyana says that the president cannot be charged for crimes he commits either whilst in office or out of office after serving his or her time as president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. And basically, it is sad to say that, but that's the fact, that's the Constitution. So if the president cannot be charged for crimes that he or she commits whilst in office or out of office after serving his or her 2-year tenure, and they cannot be charged, that means that the president is the Constitution, because that's what executive means, above the law. So I'm starting there as an example. Excuse me. So let us start there. Why is that in that manner? Why is it placed in that manner? Because the word executive means that Mr. Afrod Ali is above the law. Let me show you an example of Mr. Barjagdio when he was president between 2000 and 2010. Although so many people died on the streets, or so many Guyanese citizens, black Guyanese men, boys, brothers, nephews, uncles, dads, who would have died by the hands of the PPP and the Phantom Squad, you cannot hold him, Mr. Jack Dio, for the responsibilities of those deaths. That means those crimes that are committed, extrajudicial killing, murders that took place in the streets. I don't know if you can remember, but a lot of you who are listening would have been born, just born in those times, or would not have born until after 2010. But the fact remains that these things happen, and you cannot hold the president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana for such crimes. You cannot even charge him for war crimes. He has to be charged externally by a what you call a International Criminal Court, the ICC, or the International Court of Justice. But I don't think any president after him, whether it be another party or his same party, would want to extradite him to answer for those heinous crimes or crimes against humanity that would have committed in his tenure. So, although that is written in the Constitution, it's sad to know that the president is the Constitution, but you cannot hold him according to any actions that he committed wrongfully. Don't let anybody fool y'all, It's written. These lawyers know these things. The judges know these things. You cannot hold him for these things, what you call crimes that he would or she would have committed within that particular period of time. That's why a fraud can walk around and say what he wants to say and flaunts himself and flaunts the Constitution and the laws, because you cannot hold him accountable for it. That's the fact. Let's go on to the second part. I think that a lot of people are not aware of, but although I keep talking about it constantly, I would have hoped that some persons would have had the opportunity to do some research. The president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana is also the chief law enforcement officer. And these things are so terrible to consume that although he's the executive, which is above the law, he's a chief law enforcement officer. In his designation, he can administer the law to you, but not to him. Let me break it down into syllables. Because he's a chief law enforcement officer, he can now hire a commissioner of police and delegate his duties to that commissioner of police. Delegation means to put upon. It also means to carry out the duties of the executive. That is why only person the commissioner of police is answerable to. It is the president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. Because the commissioner of police carries out the duties of the executive, which is the president. So this is these is the ticklish things that comes up now, the ticklish questions. Now, because the commissioner of police is actually an arm of the executive, which is the president, that is delegated to carrying out the duties or the orders of the president, how can the government investigate itself? How can the president investigate? Well, you can't investigate the president, but how can you have an independent inquiry done by Suku that falls under the Guyana Police Force? Don't get tied up. If Suku doesn't fall under the Guyana Police Force, Suku falls under the auspices of the office of the president. So choose. At the end of the day, Suku, Special Organized Crime Unit, carries out the duties of the president. You see what Mr. Barjagdio said? He said Suko is investigating the information of corruption within the Guyana police force. How can the police force investigate itself when it is being directed by? How can a proper investigation be carried out? I know it is a horrible thing to say, but how can you gain justice? The system is never designed, the police force is never designed to give you justice, because the police force falls under the direction of the president. So there's no justice that you can gain. You can be locked up. Like point, no, 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 like the point in process of Mr. Mark Benchcop. He was locked up for 5 years without even being properly charged. But he was held and detained because of executive orders. The president can detain you. In the Corporation of Guyana, Corporation Republic of Guyana, the president can detain you within indefinite time. That means you don't know when you're coming out of jail. So the courts doesn't really have to find you guilty of a crime. You can be held. Your civil rights can be violated. That is why so many people died. 1,480 black men and boys died within the tenure of Mr. Barjagdio. 1,480 and counting, because they're back in power and people are still dying. People are dying, and you can suspect the way of their death that they were assassinated without nobody can say anything about it. Point in case, Mr. Paper Shorts, that were gunned down at Palm Court, and up to now that case cannot be solved. But let other crimes commit, you find the criminal quick. Suddenly the cameras around the area stop work, can identify this and can identify that. Can you imagine that? That is the country you're living in, where one man who's king and dictator controls everything. So when I say the president is the constitution of the Corporate Republic of Guyana, yes, he is. He's above the law. He's above the supreme law, and he's above the Constitution also too. He does what he feels like. They say they got 3 arms of the executive, right? But to me, there's only one arm, because the courts, although the courts can rule in favor of the people, the president doesn't have to carry it out. Look at that. Look at that. The courts can rule in favor of the people, but the president can disregard that ruling, and he cannot be questioned about it. He's the executive. He's above the law. Yes, that is the fact. It's sad to say that. It is the fact. It's the Constitution. To those who study constitutional law, to those law students who are graduating from UG, I'm sure that when they put up with that part of the Constitution, they must have said, wow. Right now they're saying, wow, Dr. Matthews, why are you talking in that particular position? It's giving away too much of information. Yes, you have to. The people needs to know what kind of constitution is governing them. One man is judge, jury, and executioner. You cannot question that. So when I said that the police force comes under the ombuds of the Commission of Police, who's been directed by the president, there's no proper justice. You could imagine you hold on and some young men and charge them for terrorism because they decide to protest. And you can't, and there's no evidence, there's no statement of evidence. No statement of evidence. A prime example, myself, you remember, before I wasn't, before I, well, then when I was a Guyanese citizen, I was locked up and charged. And no, as a matter of fact, the first time I was locked up, I was never charged. I was held against my own rights, and I paid $50,000 bail, and then that case is still, I think, I don't know if it's before the courts, but that's how it is. Nobody's answerable. I can't ask the commissioner of police. I can merely carry him to court. But if the courts find him guilty of violating my rights, it depends and up to the administration to pay the fine that is required by the courts. It is up to the administration, which is the PPP. And who controls the PPP? The president. And who's the president? The executive officer, the commander in chief, His Excellency, executive president, commander in chief of all armed forces, the Corporation of Guyana. That is his position. And then after that, the kidnap start. Well, I was kidnapped. Nothing can come out of the case. Who am I making a report to? To whom about whom? Who's going to investigate that kidnapping case? And then after that, I was locked up again for causing emotional distress to a little child. You could imagine that craziness. Locked up again for causing emotional distress. Had to find $200,000 worth, 200,000 fiat currency. To do what? To pay the ransom that is required of me in order for me to be free. There's no justice. It's to pay a ransom. Every time you're locked up as a political prisoner or as an activist, you're not being locked up, you're being kidnapped. Because the president can wake up tomorrow morning and say, hey, go and lock up the one. It's kidnapped. Because when you go before the courts, there's no statement of evidence. One thing the police got a problem with is statement of evidence. They got witnesses. And all the witness come in and says when they were arresting you, what took place. But a statement of evidence to say that this is what they found, to show that you're guilty of the fact of the crime committed, it's a problem. That is the Constitution that you, the Guyanese people, are living by every single day. It doesn't matter how much you cook it up, you shake it up, you curry it, you blend it. The fact remains the same. The president is the Constitution. I'm making it predominantly clear. Don't let these lawyers fool you. Don't let them judges fool you either. Don't even let the police fool you. Well, the police can't really fool you, but don't let them fool you neither. They know the facts. They cannot independently carry out an investigation. If they do, it is because maybe the crime is minor, or maybe the crime is against somebody who they don't like, and they give the police all the resources to take out to carry on investigation. That's the lawlessness that takes place. You could imagine you have Sean Hines sat down in front of the media and telling Mr. Chase that he was part of a death squad. And he had to report to CID and uplift the kind of firearms to go out there to shoot and to kill people. And by doing that, he bring law and order. He helped to bring law and order to the Guyanese public. by all those people dying when the night come or when the morning come. Can you imagine that? Who controls the CID? The Commission of Police. Who controls the Commission of Police? The President. So who's answerable for those crimes? Nobody. Because the President, by Constitution, cannot answer for those crimes. Those murders that took place. The crimes against humanity that happened within a 12-year period. And then you're trying to tell me I must put some kind of trust in the police force. I mean, there are policemen that knows that what's going on, what I'm talking about. They know the facts. There's no justice within a system of dictatorship. The Constitution is designed for you to dictate upon your people, not for the people to dictate upon you. It is so designed that after you've been elected president, you automatically become a dictator. That's what the Constitution of the Corporate Republic of Guyana is. The only way you are going to experience some sort of democracy is if the executive is being reduced from the president. If you take away the executive from the president, which is enshrouded in the Constitution, he's no longer the Constitution anymore. He has to abide by the Constitution. That's the only way you, the Guyanese people, are going to see and realize some sort of justice within the system, especially within the criminal justice system. Well, there's no justice, but within the system that deems to be some kind of system, especially the courts. So I'm saying this to you because I want you to follow me in a step-by-step basis. They talk about investigating corruption. You know that very well that can't happen. So let's come to the point. It makes no sense that you talk about investigating corruption. Corruption will always be corruption as long as there's an executive that controls the justice system to investigate corruption. Okay? So we know that the police force, I might say it's a waste of time, but it's a complete waste of time. You see, for people like me who like to read and make sure that I speak things in a manner in which is designed to speak in a raw version. Because when you sit down and you explain things to people in the legal version and the political version, they still not comprehend. So you need to be truthful to the people. The people needs to comprehend that in the Corporation of Guyana, there's no justice system. Only one man holds that justice system, is the president. And if he feels today or tomorrow that you required some sort of justice, there's the only way you're going to get it. When and where. Otherwise than that, they ain't got no. You could imagine the international community. That means the ambassadors of certain countries have to threaten your local leader and his, the pinky in the brain. The brain is borrowed, pinky's ear fraud. Your local, they have to threaten your local leader to give the Guyanese people some sort of justice, to give the Guyanese people some sort of two-tier government, to give the Guyanese people some sort of a relief from the oil money. They got to threaten them with sanctions, and they got to put sanctions in them for them to operate in such a manner. And they don't have to operate in that manner, because the Constitution gives them the right to, which they are the Constitution. So whenever they speak for the people and by the people, because the people who elected them to that position, it is the people who doesn't know what's going on, but doesn't know what is enshrined in the Constitution. But it's the people who elected them. So they could always go and say, well, it's the people who elected me. This is the Constitution, and I have all right to exploit. I have all right to fulfill the Constitution. I have all rights to be the Constitution. So how are you going to ask the Guyana police force to investigate corruption within itself? How it's like the rat trying to tell people, oh, he's going to carry out an investigation on the story about May Toussaint Thomas and the Mohammeds. Oh, who's going to carry that investigation out? Which agency are you talking about? Is it an independent agency? Where is this agency? It's not local, because if it's local, it's controlled by the executive. You can't ask the police force to investigate the government, because the international community is pointing to your government. Government of the Corporate Republic of Guyana, the president and his minions, they're pointing to them. But they know that they wouldn't investigate themselves. Imagine you asking the US State Department for evidence that they have garnered. They took 2.5 years in your country gathering the same evidence they now following you up with and setting an example out to you, and also putting sanctions on you. Because every time your minister left when you go there, we talk about the minister just so don't worry. Every time the minister left and go there, no hold on and them. They detain them for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours and they send them back, because it's not you the want, It's not the minister the want, it's you the want. They're only trying to see what the minister can give. Because the minister himself, guy ain't got nothing much. The family living out there, so they gotta go there sometime or the other. But the US is squeeze it from the top up or the bottom down. One out of the two. Or from the bottom up or from the top down. This gets squeezed anytime, doesn't matter. So now we're going to come to number 3, the third point, of why the president is the Constitution. Because he's executive, or he or she is the executive president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana, all the ministers of government carries out his or her duty as president, all the ministers. Can you remember during the PPP time, there's what you call the head of the presidential secretariat, or the minister of governments during the APNU period? Because the president himself cannot sit down and delegate all the duties and make sure that it's being carried out. He or she now has to appoint someone and delegate that duty to them. Either the head of the presidential secretariat or the minister of governance. And who that person reports to? The president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. I can show you a simple example. Right now, it is required by law, as long as you are, I'm talking about parliamentary rules and laws, as long as you submit a budget to the parliament to be passed on behalf of the Guyanese people, that budget needs to come under Ministry of Finance. Am I correct? That is guided by a Minister of Finance. So this is what the rat did to make sure that the thievery goes on very smoothly. Appointing a Minister of Finance would come under scrutiny by 2 bodies. One, the parliamentary body of Public Accounts Committee, the PAC, and secondly, the Auditors General. Remember, the Auditor General got to audit the financial affairs of the country and the budget that you pass within that period of time. So to make sure that you're not answerable to that part, I do not require Minister of Finance. So they wouldn't have a Ministry of Finance. They will have an Office of Financial Affairs within the Office of the President, and then you have a senior minister with responsibility of financial affairs within the Office of the President. You already get where I'm coming from now? So there's no accountability for 1,700,000,000,000 and something dollars. There's no accountability for it. So hey, I ain't gonna come to nobody because I'm the executive. I'm not required to follow the rules as to say because I am the executive. And this is the best part of it. The Prime Minister of the Corporate Republic of Guyana, his responsibility is to make sure that the ministers follow the constitution of their offices. So now the reduced demands portfolio. He's the prime minister, but his responsibilities now has been reduced to the minister within the office of the prime minister. Again, you reduce and you detract and you retract the portions that may cause some sort of accountability. Y'all get where I'm coming from now? So now you got the prime minister, a nice call the photo taker out, the photo op prime minister. But you got the prime minister, and you have a minister within the office of the prime minister with responsibilities of his office. That means every time he acts, he got to look to Kwame Mackay and wonder if he's doing the right thing according to the executive policy. But his responsibility is the ministers. And then his responsibility also to be supposed to be in charge of parliament or parliamentary affairs. But now you have a minister of parliamentary affairs. You know, Madam Gail Teixeira. So his duties have been reduced considerably and tremendously. It's like they're insulting the man's intelligence. And the man was once chief of staff of the Ghana Defense Force. So I'm wondering, are these well-learned individuals? Or because they're black, they're being used as a rubber stamp? I mean, come on. I'm yet still left to wonder where this charade is going. It's a lot of embarrassment. A minister within a minister with senior minister within the office of the within the office of the president with responsibility of finance. So, not the Ministry of Finance, but the Office of Financial Affairs within the office of the president. So the Auditor General cannot audit the office of the president. By law, he's the executive. How can you audit my office? You can audit the Ministry of Finance if you could find one. Y'all get where I'm coming from now? Yeah, you could go there and audit it. Because in order to have a Ministry of Finance, you have to have a Minister of Finance. You can't have a Ministry of Finance and there's no minister. Nobody fool you. You know, some of them is sit down and feel that, these niggas who we got, they can't read and write and they don't understand nothing. Then they'll be controlling their indoctrination levels. So when they go into school, they know nothing but the Constitution. So when they come out, they dunce no hell. And I got a set of dunce little children, they're laughing at them too, making them extra dunce. And then here with the laugh there now, I employ another nigger and I made him prime minister. And then just to show that I reduce his level of intelligence and insult his intelligence, I put another nigger to watch that nigger. You know? Yes. I take away all his responsibilities. Every drop. All you got to do is just go around the place and smile and skinny teeth and wave your hand, you know. I tell you what, hey, these little children really feel like a sense, eh? What an insult. And then, hold on, within the parliamentary level, so I take away his powers again. I have somebody who is called a Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. Take away his powers. Because I am the executive. I do what I feel like. Y'all could talk cheese, y'all could skin y'all teeth, y'all could cry how much you want. What I say goes. And I'm not answerable to no one. You can imagine that. Here is the disrespectful part now. All these ministers follows your instructions because at the end of the day, they also are delegated with powers of the executive, from the executive, sorry. They carry out the delegations of the executive, which is the president. Remember, he is the executive president of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. He can create how much ministries he wants. He can employ how much ministers he wants. And he can delegate to them duties as he sees fit, he or she sees fit, according to the Constitution of the Corporate Republic of Guyana. You could imagine that, huh? That's a fact. I'm going to show you a simple example. You can remember the rape case with Dharmlal. Y'all can remember the rape case with Dharmlal. When that child accused him of raping and sodomizing her, and suddenly she changed her mind. How many parents knows that before your child reaches 17 years of age, she belongs to the Corporate Republic? He or she, that child, is the property of the state. How much? I wonder how many of you knows that? You remember the supplementary act that they bring out? Did they want to vaccinate children? And it was protested against during the David Granger time. Y'all remember the story? Y'all remember other stories that took place during the PPP time also too? Where they want to vaccinate your children. They had different things that they brought up. And they went and exercised and execute the supplementary act, talking about the right to vaccinate your children. Because under the Corporation of Guyana and the Constitution of Guyana, your child belongs to the state. It is the property of the state. And how he or she becomes a property of the state is because you gave the government the right to do so. By applying for that birth certificate, by signing up, you're telling the government that you doesn't know how to take care of your child. You doesn't know how to rear that child. You doesn't know how to bring that child up. You don't know how to to feed that child, to educate that child. So now the government takes that responsibility. And that child now becomes the property of the state. Under the Constitution, the president has the right, and he or she exercises that right. And they make sure to let you know that your child belongs to the state. So how can you investigate someone who has delegated authorities of your powers? How can you charge that person? How can you take that person to court? How can that person receive justice? They can't. Because by all means, the child's parents realizes, maybe by some legal advice, that the case is not a winnable case because it's impossible for you to prosecute the state. The minister represents the president. That's Dharamlal's position. He was minister of local government. He represents the president. He carries out the delegated authorities of the president. He now becomes a full representation of the president. How can you now charge him for a crime that the president is immune from? Y'all get my point? Because if you're charging him, how it will look on behalf of the president if you find him guilty that he's employing rapists and he's employing pedophiles and all these things, and he doesn't want to ghost his name. So the best thing to do is to ask the minister to resign pending investigations. And those investigations now get kicked through the door because you know why? First thing, the child can't have their own personal legal representation. Why? Because the child is the property of the state. Now, the state is the person who employs legal representation for the child. So what happens now? The state activates the Constitution. If a child now comes under any duress or personal engravement or oppression or some kind of physical harm, the state now takes the child and protects the child. In protecting the child, the state can say to the parents of the child, you cannot visit the child until when I am there, until when I give supervision, until when I say yes or no. And that now takes away the powers and the authority from the child. So the state now tells you that you cannot have proper legal intervention until when I say so. Now, I employ my own state attorney, which is prosecutors, which is not going to prosecute Dharamlal because he's an executive. No, he is a delegated responsibility of the executive, which is the president. Y'all get where I'm coming from? So no matter all the allegations y'all getting right now come up, trumped up, charged up, you still can't prosecute Dharamlal. Maybe we could do it privately because he's not a minister anymore. But I wonder how you can get to do that. I wonder how you can get the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution, to issue such a report for him to be charged on some other rape charge or some other rape allegation. I wonder how that's going to come out. Y'all really get where I'm coming from? Hmm? Y'all really understand what is really being said here? This is a very ticklish, serious matter. This is where the Corporation of Guyana, Guyanese, this is where you're going in 2025. You sure you want to go in this direction? Are you sure you're going to vote for this to happen again and again and again and again and again until when you like well, I just don't know what's happening. Are you sure this is what you want to do for the next 5 years? You want to have this particular government exercising the dictatorship of the Constitution? Because it is a dictatorship. Because they're trying to tell you, yo, brother, how is the Constitution? Nigga, what you gonna do about it? That's what is happening. You got party officials and business people calling you black dogs and hungry belly dogs, and they're not held accountable. You got this mad, crazy one on his social media was like cussing up people and talking a bundle of nonsense, talking about black women, and because you stand up against him, all he did was apologize. He cannot be prosecuted because why? He's representing the executive. Yeah, talking about critics. You can imagine that. Look at the kind of lawlessness And he called himself a media operative belonging to some media house. He calls himself that, media operative. He has the right to bring over the news. Fine. You got the right to do a lot of things. But do you have the right to tear people down? And don't have the answer, and cannot be, and the people cannot be justified, they cannot be given justice because your friend is the president? I mean, come on. Guys, where are you going to in this direction? Where are you heading to? Is this the kind of justice you want? I mean, come on, seriously. This what you want? You know, you got these little boys telling you, these little children telling you, well, look, I can give you this contract. This contract is 300 million. You ain't got to complete this $300 million contract, you know. All you got to do is get halfway and say you're unable because you can't do this, you're finding this, and we can take the contract from you and we can give it to somebody else, another 300 million. So that means I can get cut back. They can't prosecute me because according to the Public Accounts Committee, they can't charge me for nothing. They can't hold me accountable for nothing because my boss is the president, which is the executive. But when I get out of power, you can't blame me, you can't hold me responsible because I act within the confines of the constitution of my office. What is the confines of the constitution of the office of that minister? The constitution and the confines of his office is the delegated authority from the office of the president. Oh, Dr. Matthews B., you're too terrible. You sit on here and you iron it out piece by piece. You have to continue to sleep. I'm talking to you guys. You can continue to sleep. You see, every time when they want to act and act out who they are, what they do, they bring an artist to the country and they know you are going to go and flood out the stadium. The stadium got 25,000 people, but 40,000 going to turn up to listen and shake down and boogie woogie to the artist whilst they take your rights away from you by the confines of the Constitution. Yeah, that's what they're doing. You see what they're doing with the mayor city council? By the confines of the Constitution, through who? The Minister of Local Government, with delegated authorities from the president. Hey, brother, don't blame me. Talk to the big man, talk to the president, because by Constitution, I only carry out the delegated authorities of the president. That's a fact. Can't help it. I ain't able to sit down and lie to y'all. I can't do it. I can't be political correct. I cannot sit down and politically execute the wrong thing and feed your propaganda. It's hard for me to do so. I mean, take a good look at where everything lies. It lies within the confines of the president. Everything. Within the Corporation of Guyana. Everything. I commit a traffic offense and you want to charge me? All right, good. Preep. Hello? Uncle, here what happened, man? I got the police stop me. Get the police the phone. Yeah, Skipper. You know who's me? No, who's you? I name let me know 1 minute name again. I name Ramson. No. Yeah. I name Ramson. I'm the Minister of Legal Affairs. Oh, shoot. Yeah, Skipper. All right. The police would right away release the individual because you know why? You're a minister of government. And the police know you can call the president, and the president call the commissioner of police, and the police might lose his job. Might not only if he's especially if he's a senior officer though. Ooh, He might get transferred to some place that is very uncomfortable for him. You already get where I'm coming from? Even if the policeman might not want to be corrupt, at the end of the day, he has to be corrupt because he's serving a corrupt president. Hey man, just look around you. Look at the vice president taking 50,000 Chinese, 50,000 US dollars for every Chinese that come into the country to do business. Now me says vice news says 50,000 plus got it on tape. You can't talk to me about that. You got to talk to my friend Sue. Because Susie man will collect any money for you. It's corruption, brother. And the investigation still pending. I gotta ask Sue how far the investigation there. I want to find Sue. And you guys want a change of president, a change of party, a change of the politics? Ask them to change the constitution because you can keep running into the same one too. Put up. Know what I'm telling you? Ask them to change the constitution. Because if you don't, it's not going to be a nice playing field. Why am I saying all these things? Because we have one major problem: reading and comprehending. A lot of us don't know a lot of things. Like a lot of us don't know that the central government is there for economic empowerment, and the local government is for the responsibility of the people, and the central government want to take over the local government authority. By what? By two things: local government commission and the minister of local government. Suddenly governs the elected representative. So even if you went and elect somebody from the PNC, and the government of the day, which is the central government, is PPP, the person can't represent you at all. Can't do nothing. Can't say nothing. Because he's been ruled by a minister from the executive. And who's the minister? Minister of local government. And if you really want to listen to the minister of local government, well, I got the local government commission for terrorize you. Terror you properly. Like how we got the PPP councils from the Georgetown Main City Council talking about the garbage pile up and the garbage in the city of Georgetown. They know why they're talking about it. They got the eye up on some nice cash. They know where the cash coming from, the cash cow, the milking cash cow. We saw they implement, who's it? The waste disposable engineer. Mao in charge of the department, the calling the name. So the man proposed some couple $100 million and like the mayor who they think must got the money sit down on it. The mayor sit down on it. They're just talking about it so they could implement it and have it revised by the local government commission, and also to make sure that the minister approve it because it's coming from his councillors who sit in the Georgetown Main City Council. But then they're trying to tell you, the people, that it's the APNU council that has the city in the kind of dismay it is. But they're not telling you that they're also responsible for that. Yes, because they sit in the council too. They are responsible for that. Although they're not being elected by one of the 15, all the 15 constituencies, they represent them. So yes, they're also accountable. They can be held liable. So according to chapter 2801, because I hear the quote in 2801, and I talked about it the last time too. And I said to them, I said to you, the Guyanese people on my show also, to pay your rates and taxes. I beg you, pay your rates and taxes. These boys are saying up on the council ain't easy, pay your rates and taxes. I know what telling you. You wake up a morning and realize the house you're living in is not your own. Hmm. By the way, though, I am Noble Gaffin Matthews Bay. I'm always happy to come to you at these particular times and give to you the message as it is in its raw version and help to guide you along the way so you can be properly informed. Once again, I say I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay, and this is Dr. Matthews Bay Unfiltered. I want to thank you very much for your time this evening, to tuning in, to sharing this live stream, and keep on to share it. I want to say to you, stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, and wear a mask. Don't forget the little ones that you take into public places. Good evening and Cheerios for now.